Hello, I am romance reader and reviewer Liz Donatelli. Welcome to Reader Seeks Romance, a romance novel talk show that features entertaining interviews with authors and publishing insiders. My guest this episode is Julia London. Julia is the New York Times and USA Today bestselling author of more than 60 romance and women's fiction novels. Best known for writing historical romance, Julia and I chatted about her new rom-com, You Lucky Dog. I engaged her in a round of Confessions of a Romance Author, and Julia gave a tour of her personal bookshelf and writer's office. A quick note, the setting does change throughout the show, but the author remains the same. Enjoy. Welcome, Julia, to Reader Seeks Romance. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Tell me about your new rom-com, You Lucky Dog.
Lucky Dog. Okay. I'm a dog lover, and I really wanted to mix dogs with a contemporary romance. And so I came up with the idea of a dog walker who mixes up two dogs and returns them to the wrong house. I actually saw a man walking down the street one day, and he had two dachshunds, little brown dachshunds, and they were identical. And they were like in sync with each other. And I was like, how does he tell them apart? And I started thinking, wouldn't that be funny? And wouldn't it be funny if it was a dog walker? And then I called some friends and said, is this not hilarious? And they're like, oh my God, that's hilarious. So that's where it came from. And the dogs are opposite. One is a depressed Basset Hound. The other one is a very perky Basset Hound. And Max and Carly, the hero and heroine, are also opposite. She's high-strung and driven. He's got his ambitions too, but he's a little bit more laid back, and his focuses are elsewhere with his family. And the other thing I really enjoy writing about is just relationships with people, like with your family and, friends. And so I added family dynamics. So Max and Carly end up being sort of sandwiched between two dogs and crazy families on both ends.
So You Lucky Dog is set in Austin, Texas, which I know is where you live. Is it easier for you to connect to the story when the setting is so personal and familiar to you?
Yeah, and I've talked a lot about this with the historical romances I write, because you can research a place and you can still write about it, but when you go there, you sort of absorb the vibe of the place. And I came to Austin to go to school 1,042 years ago. Austin was still a hippie town, so I have been here a really long time, and I have absorbed the vibe. And in fact, I was a county manager for Travis County, where, that Austin's located in. So I know every inch of the city, and I think that adds to it. And it's just a cool town.
Why Basset Hounds? Are they funnier than, let's say, Chow Chows or Shih Tzus or any other type of dog?
Well, my family and I have had a lot of dogs through my life, and we've had 2 or 3 Basset Hounds, and I just love them, and I know what they're like. So that was one reason. And I think they're like so adorable and wrinkly, so that was one of the reasons I wanted to do Bassets.
So currently you own dogs?
Yes, I have a dog, Moose, but it's been raining here today, so he's been in hiding all day. So, or I would bring him out and show him, but he is a big old Labrador.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So now you're best known for historical romance, although you do write contemporary romance and women's fiction. In switching from historical romance to writing rom-com, how do you get into that headspace? How do you go from writing, something that's not funny to something that has to be funny?
Yeah. Well, I do have a lot of humor in my historicals, but it really kind of depends on the couple and what the conflict between the couple is going to be. So in historical, there was a lot more built-in conflict just because of the way, women's place in society in the 1800s, for example. So there are a lot more things that can come between two people. But I tell beginning writers a lot, the main story is about that couple. And it doesn't really matter if it's historical or if it's contemporary. I say it's kind of like a set. If you're in a historical, the pictures on the wall, the period pieces, the furnishings, that's the set. But the story, the movie, is about those two people. And it's really kind of the same for contemporary.
Where and when does inspiration for a new novel strike you?
I usually do some form of exercise in the morning, like I run or I drive my Peloton, and a lot of it, when I'm out, like when it's just me away from a phone or a computer, things pop into my head. And I don't know, it's driving is a great place to come up with ideas, right? You're looking at the guy and then in the car next to you and you're like, I think I've seen him somewhere before. What if I had, anything could spur it. Yeah, mine generally start with a character instead of the actual story. So I generally am thinking of a certain kind of character and then start thinking of all the different places that I can put them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So character first. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I like that. So now you've experienced a lot of book releases in your career. How did it feel to release You Lucky Dog during a time when you're unable to meet fans and, do book signings?
I've done a lot of stuff on Zoom with bookstores, with interviewers like you, with book clubs. Yeah, I just feel like I've probably put on makeup more in the last 6 months than I did the previous year.
Do you feel that you're more closely connected doing virtual events, or do you still prefer, face-to-face?
I still prefer face-to-face. I guess the difference is, especially with readers, is that when you're at a place where they will tell you they've never tried this kind of book and they're going to try it. So they share a little bit of themselves. But when you're doing this kind of thing, if you had a bunch of readers, half of them wouldn't even be on video. So you don't even know who you're talking to.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that is true.
There's just not that interaction. Flame in the Flower by Kathleen Woodiwiss.
Wow, you knew that off the top of your head.
I remember that book. I grew up in the country on a ranch. I was not, I was very sheltered and I was completely scandalized and titillated by that book. So yeah, I remember it very well.
And how old were you when you read the book?
I was probably 15 or 16. Yeah. And then never read it. And I went on from there to read Rosemary Rogers and remember the one, Where's Alice? It was like the teenage girl that was, drug addicted and all kinds of, it just really had to be very scandalous for me to want to read it at that age.
Question 1. Have you ever missed a writing deadline?
Many times. Yes.
Okay.
In fact, I just told my editor I finished the book on time, and it was so remarkable that I had to point it out to her.
Wow. Okay. Well, I wasn't sure if maybe you would say, of course I've never missed a deadline. Why would you ask that? So I'm glad that that wasn't the case. Have you ever written one of your real life enemies into a novel as an antagonist / villain?
I have not written, I don't have any real life enemies. I have people in my life that I don't like very well, and I have written them in, but they are generally secondary characters. I don't make them discoverable.
Next question. Have you ever ignored an editor's feedback?
No, and I mean, maybe a couple of things, but generally, I have to tell you a funny story about that. But generally speaking, and I may not do it in the way that they suggest, but I take the comment to heart. But I did have an editor years and years ago who told me to insert this orphan into my book. She thought it needed something, so she made me do an orphan. So I had to completely redraft part of the book to include an orphan. And it's one of my early historicals, but my friends and I laugh about that all the time, about the time my editor made me put an orphan in the book. Such a dumb thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Now I've got enough years under me now. I'd be like, no, I'm not putting an orphan in this book. But I was like a young author back then. And
So you just kind of went with it. Yeah, I don't blame you. Next question. I don't think we could beat the orphan answer, but Have you ever hid the fact that you're a romance novelist from anyone?
I do all the time. I generally don't bring it up unless somebody asks me about it. And in fact, I'm involved in a charitable organization here and I haven't told anybody. And it's amazing how people never ask you what you do. But the reason I don't is because I find that if you tell somebody you're a published writer, the conversation can switch to that, so if you're in a group of people, they're like, they want to know like how many, have I ever read you? Oh, I do. I think I did read your book. And, they just want to know about writing because it's so unique. So I generally don't say it unless somebody asks me directly.
Okay, that's interesting. Have you ever ditched writing for a day so that you could watch Netflix?
For a full day or?
For a full day, and it doesn't have to be Netflix, just like watching TV or watching a movie. Have you ever just ditched writing?
I can think maybe once or twice in the last 20 years I've done that. And it's usually been like a point of exhaustion or just, not feeling up to it and feeling like I need a break. But I'm pretty disciplined. I get up and do my thing and go to the office and write. And I feel like I'm slacking if I don't go to work, basically.
Right, yeah. Well, that makes sense because you've written a lot of novels. So it doesn't come about from you skipping writing, but I figure out. My last question is, would you consider naming a street in a future novel Donatelli Drive after me?
Absolutely. I'd do it in a heartbeat.
All right. All right.
This bookcase is in my bedroom kind of off so nobody can see it. And I just like have all the books I'm going to read.
Okay.
That's this one.
So is there anything there that you want to point out because it was particularly good or you can't wait to actually get to read it?
Here's the other thing I have.
Oh, you got
this.
Whoa.
These are the books that I've read that I'm going to take to the library.
Nice.
So I'm sure here's one I read recently. Get a Life, Chloe Brown.
I just read that with my online book club. Yes.
Yeah, that's a really cute one. I've read so much during the pandemic. It's really hard to remember all I've read.
Wow. I like to see.
And so all of these are current books. And then here are the ones that I'm thinking about reading next.
Okay. Oh, Victoria. That's about Queen Victoria, obviously.
Queen Victoria. And it's on the top of the pile because I'm about to start writing another historical. And I thought that would be good.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. I just read this book and I absolutely adored it.
A Star
Lane, A Star is Born.
I've not read it.
So he is an assistant to a movie star, but he actually was in real life. He was Carrie Fisher's assistant. But it's a novel, but it's so much fun. I really loved it.
Oh, right. Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, I could go through here. There's a million of them. I used to read on a Kindle, but I find that really hard to do now. And so I keep buying actual books and I buy them, So this is my office.
Oh.
This is where I do most of my work.
Nice. It's nice and cozy.
Yeah. I have a whole closet under my stairs with my books, but I have a lot of research books here that I use mainly for the historicals. So you see a lot of London and here's from another Zoom meeting. When you come and to dedicate Donatelli Drive with me, you can sit in my office and we can talk there. You can sit in my office and we can talk there. But you'll come down.
Thank you so much, Julia. You've been a great sport about making time to chat with Reader Seeks Romance.
I really appreciate the opportunity. I love talking about my books and, my life. So that was great. Thank you so much.